Welcome to another episode of the Vets in Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Will Curtis, where we are taking another veteran who's made the transition out of the military and into real estate. Al, thank you so much for being with us this week.
Thank you for having me, Will. Greatly happy to be here.
So tell us what you did in the service.
In the service, I was in the United States Navy. I was aircraft. I was ABH, which stands for Aviation Boatswain Mate Handler. So I directed aircraft. I like to tell people, if you ever seen Top Gun, that was me out there. With that said, we just hit our anniversary. I don't know if anybody ever heard of Operation Tomodachi, but that was a big thing back then. That's when the tsunami had hit Japan.
Oh yeah.
And my carrier was the first carrier actually in that area, and it was a big deal. It was something to see for sure. And I think the anniversary was yesterday or today on that one. But yeah, directed aircraft on board the USS Ronald Reagan, and I enjoyed every bit of it. It was definitely a high-paced, fast-moving environment, so it was fun. I definitely appreciate all of the things I did there.
I can imagine. I was an Apache guy in the Army, so still in the aviation world, right? But nowhere near as intense as I'd imagine. The flight deck is of an aircraft carrier, where there's constantly going, landing and flying and launching. I can imagine that's safety concern. The attention to the details got to be pretty high in that kind of environment.
Yeah, I would say attention to detail definitely is very high. I would highly recommend keeping what we call a head on a swivel type of deal, because you have so many different, we call them birds, planes, birds. You have so many of them moving around at one time on a platform, pretty much. There's not a whole airport. So there's a lot of things going on, from potentially being blown overboard by exhaust, being pushed down by exhaust. And we used to have I think now they're called the growlers, but it used to be the prowlers. And one of the biggest things with that was putting on the tow bar. The rule was to have two people do it at one time, because the intake on the prowler was so strong that it would literally suck you in the intake and spit you out the back. So a head on the swivel type of deal on the flight deck is definitely always, be aware.
So how did you go from flight deck of the Ronald Reagan into real estate? That doesn't seem like a natural transition whatsoever.
Well, with that, I would say I always have liked real estate. I'm from a small town in Mississippi, and how I sort of kind of got introduced to real estate was I was at my great grandmother's house one day, and the sheriff came by, and I was like, I know my grandmother haven't done anything. The sheriff here, I know she haven't. And he came by and he sat on the porch with us for a second, and I was probably like 8 or 9 years old. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, sir, what you doing?" And he said, "What's those papers?" I asked him, "What's those papers you're bringing here?" And he said, "Well, these are your tax papers." So of course I didn't have no idea what that meant. And so he went on to explain it to me. He said, "Well, these are your tax papers." And pretty much, like I said, I'm from a very small town. Me, the sheriff, I ride around and I drop them, I hand deliver them to everybody. And of course, being a kid and intrigued by this, and so I just kept on asking questions like, well, if that's the case, I asked him, I said, "Well, what happens if they don't, pay the tax bill?" And like I said, I'm from a small town, so they would put everybody information in the newspaper. In the newspaper, probably like 5 or 6 sheets, that's it. But they would put everybody that haven't paid the taxes on their property in the newspaper. And so I continued to grow and grow, and I ended up getting my license. And I used to get another thing. Our newspaper only came out twice a week, on Wednesday and Sunday. So normally on the Wednesday paper is where everything will be. All the people that haven't paid their taxes is right there. And he taught me about the right of redemption. He taught me about, going to the courthouse and paying the taxes. And if it all go through, as far as right of redemption in Mississippi is 3 years, the property is yours. And that was that's pretty much was the first thing that had me, attached to real estate. So I would go and get the Wednesday paper when that time of year came around, and I would literally circle and highlight I don't want to say the listings because they wasn't listings, but circle of properties that had my attention. I'll go ride by them, and I was yeah, I'm from the country, deep from the country, and I would cut grass and do all the different things to make my own, money. And I found several pieces that fit what I was looking for, and I was more or less focused on land because I was like, I'm not old enough to be taking care of a house, but the land
Mhm.
is the land.
Hmm.
And I actually went to the courthouse and had people that was old enough to go with me. I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but sometimes I would actually skip school just to go to the courthouse and like, hey, can you come with me? I'll probably get my grandmother or somebody. Hey, can you come down here and I got the money, but can you come down here and do this for me? Because I really want this property. So that's what more or less got me into real estate and at a young age. So going from the military, I ended up going to I worked in the oil field for a little bit, oil and gas down in the Gulf of Mexico. Started out in Singapore, and still had that real estate, in the back of my mind. It was just something that I wanted to do. And I got out here and took the test a couple times. And once I passed, I would say the rest is history. And I love where I'm at. This is where I belong, if that
That
makes sense.
that's interesting because as we talk to so many veterans, it's I never thought about it, never there. But you were doing this as a kid. I mean,
Yes,
you actually start to invest, which I think everybody talks about. Man, I wish I did it earlier. You're probably one of the few who could say I started early enough, in the
I
process,
did.
which is fascinating because I don't know. I mean, I've got small kids. I don't think that's not even on their mind. That's not even not even registering to them. But yet you were starting to, I mean, effectively build wealth. I mean, as a child.
Yes, yes. And I would say I successfully ended up getting past one on the 3-year right of redemption in
Hmm.
Mississippi. It's different in different states.
Yeah, yeah,
But of course, if for the ones that's listening and don't know, if the owner decides to come back and pay their taxes, their back taxes, you get your money back plus interest.
interest. Yeah.
So it's in my mind as a kid growing up, I was like, well, it's a win-win. Of course, ultimately I want the land. I want the property. But if not, I mean, as a kid, I didn't have many responsibilities, as far as like bills and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, well, either way it go, I'm okay with it. I
Mhm.
still ended up pretty much I invested my money over here in this little TSP thrift saving plan, and they came back within a couple of years, and I cashed out with a little bit more than what I put into it. So it was pretty cool. So I would say overall, that's definitely where real estate started, but under the age of 10, for sure.
So let's go into you got your license. What did you already have a plan once you had your license, or what did it look like from there?
Well, let's put it like this: when I got my license, when I first thought about getting my real estate license, I actually thought about getting my license just to have access. Because on it from an investor standpoint, I wanted access. I wanted access to MLS. I wanted the relationships. I wanted all of those different things. So that was my first when I this is like when I first thought about signing up for pre-license. That's what I had in my mind. By the time I finished pre-license and actually got licensed, that whole thought process was completely different. I was like, I want to get out here and actually sell and buy real estate, not just as an investor, but, to help other veterans, help the ones that don't know or didn't know. When I have my consultations these days, I always tell my clients, I'm big on education and communication. I, if you don't know, you don't know. There's no such thing as a dumb question. So just ask the question. I don't expect you to have the same amount of knowledge that I have. You a first time home buyer or you a first time seller, whatever it might be. You haven't went through this before. And truth be told, I have people that have bought several times. And I don't just take that like, oh, well, since you done bought several times, you know how these ropes go. I still go and explain things as if you are a first time home buyer or home seller. And if you stop me and say, just want to close the store, if you stop me and say, oh, no, no, Al, I know about that, I know about that, I know about that, then by all means, I'll sort of kind of throttle back on that particular subject. Education is one of the bigger things 90% of my business is veterans. And I love working with veterans. So I just overall, I just love real estate, So I like the fact of investing in it. I understand longevity of real estate, but I also feel that everyone deserve housing, whether you want to buy or rent. You still deserve, housing, and everybody deserves that. But of course, veterans have a little bit of a sweeter spot in my heart, per se, because I'm a veteran myself. I know what a lot of veterans go through. All veterans are not the same. Some people look at it and say, "Oh, well, you just did this, you just did that, and you never even put on a pair of boots before. So how can you tell any veteran about anything? Even if it was a veteran right beside me, serving right beside me, it some of the events and some of the things that happen, it could affect them differently than what it affect me. So I can't tell them like, oh, you should just brush it under the rug, or you should just do this, or you should just do that, or don't worry about it. I don't want nobody to just wallow in something, because I feel like the longer that you play in the mud, the deeper you're going to get in the mud, if that makes sense. But I would just, it's more or less just helping the people as far as real estate. I like helping, and like I said, with the veterans, a lot of veterans don't even know. They don't even know about the benefits that they have. They don't know the different. They want housing. They tired of renting, but they don't even realize that they have a VA home loan there that they can use. And as long as you did what you had to do and got at least enough time in the military to qualify for the VA home loan, it's there for you. But again, I'm gonna say it again: if you don't know, you just don't know.
Now you mentioned that a good chunk of your business is in veterans. Was that deliberate, or was that just you just kind of started going out there and connecting with people and realizing that was a community you were attached to and you were building?
Oh, yes and I would say yes and no. I would put it like that: yes and no. I still do a lot with veterans and military. I'm a part of my local American Legion. I'm the chair of the veterans ministry at my church. So I still strategically put myself around veterans because I like the veteran community. We
Yeah.
we connect. I mean, we can talk about stuff and relate versus just talking to a civilian, a person never been in the military. It's just two different relations. So I enjoy all of my veterans and all the things I do with veterans. And sometimes I'm gonna say it fall in my lap, if that makes sense. It's like, hey, that young man right there, he sell real estate and he definitely knows what he's talking about. I'm not I love real estate. So I don't want it to sound like as if I'm just, the god of real estate. I'm not that, but I just really love what I do. I'm the person that will go sit in the corner and read just on real estate for an hour and didn't even realize I've been sitting there that long. I don't mind educating myself. Speaking of VAs, when VA newsletters come out, I'm attached to every kind of VA newsletter that can come out. I'm going to probably go sit down and read through that newsletter because and a lot of times it don't even be anything real estate related in there. It's just the fact that I want to have the knowledge to where if I bump into a veteran and we start having a conversation, I have the knowledge to say, hey, it is a solution to that. I just read this in this email, or I just read this in this newsletter, or the VA just sent this out. So I would say to answer that question, it wasn't, oh, I'm just going to go target veterans, but veterans did have a spot. And I was like, yeah, I definitely would like to work with veterans. And we understand language. We understand having to do a duty move. We understand timing. Sometimes timing can be timing. I have to find me something within a week and boom, 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 So understanding how the transit would work, understanding how the movers and all of the other things, trying to make sure that my veteran, any client, but just speaking from veteran clients, you're not spending unnecessary money, if that makes sense. Keeping up with a timeline. If you say that, if you're telling me if we talking at least 2 months in advance, and you're thinking about your bill, and you telling me that these how the days are aligning, I'm giving that advice. Like, hey, we might want to like close around this time, and that'll give you enough time to move without feeling like you have to be rushed, without not worrying about spending extra funds to send your stuff to storage because the house is, I mean, stuff happens, things happen. We can't control all things, but trying to address the things that I know that could possibly happen and see can we build a plan around that to keep it from getting us too deep off in a funk, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's usually one of the questions we get from a lot of veterans that are transitioning. Hey, I want to go after military. I want to be in those communities. And the question usually is, how far do you lean into it? Are you the, retired master chief and it's on your, you're in uniform on your business card going that crazy with it? Or are you just pretty subtle about it? Or is it kind of maybe in your business name that they might gleam, from it? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Are you, overtly, hey, look at me, I'm a veteran, come work with me? Or is it more of a subtle conversation that kind of comes up?
More, I would say more of a similar conversation that probably comes up. Now, of course, on social media, I do have, like in my description or my bio, veteran serving veterans. I have this pen. I don't know if you can see it much, but I just wear this navy
Yeah.
realtor pen on a daily. Um, and I just, the conversations just start, and a lot of times it'll start out by, it won't start out talking about real estate. It'll just start out talking about something that's a benefit for veterans. And I guess that's why I say I'm big on just having other information. If it's something dealing with disabilities or something dealing with education, schooling, whatever it is, I have a daughter. I'm 100%. Just talking about the things that you have been awarded, or the things that you have went out here and worked for. If you're 100% total and permanent, there's other benefits out there for you that's not for the ones that's 0 to 90 or 10 to 90. There's a whole other slew of benefits open up. So just having those conversations, one I like to talk about, which you don't have to be 100% for. If I'm talking to veterans, and we might not be talking about real estate, but I like to say, I have my way of saying it. Hey, I'm not trying to be in your business or anything. However, do you get compensated, from being in the military, i.e. disability, this, that, and the third? 'Cause it could be sensitive to some people, so I try to tread lightly going into that. And then, here in Georgia, a lot of them will say, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." They don't mind, telling the information, especially they know that I'm a vet as well. And I will go in and say, like, "Hey, well, that if you were to buy a home, or you were thinking about buying purchasing a home, your funding fee is waived." And now that leads into a conversation of, oh, well, what is the funding fee? Now I'm talking about that. Here in Georgia, if you are 100%, I'll let you know, like, hey, here in Georgia, about, if you're 100%, about 80% of your property taxes will be eliminated. It's conversations like that. I'm not selling you anything. I'm just giving you the knowledge that you may not have or you might not know about. So at that point, it's like, oh well, these few gems that you dropped on me, I didn't know none of that. And for you to come up and tell me all this stuff within like a 5 to 7 minute conversation, that will prompt this person to, hey, you know what? I'm not looking to buy right now, but do you have a card? Or do you have this? Do you have that? Can I get your contact information? I've had situations to where, hey, I'm not looking to buy, but I have a coworker
Right.
that's looking to buy. And they're not even a veteran, but the way that you're breaking this down and you're talking about it very smooth and easy, like it's just come second nature to you. So that's, to me, that's the benefit of being abreast of what's going on, understanding the new rules, the new instructions. We just had a new instruction come out, I think at the beginning of the year. It was like 100 and some pages. I read the whole thing because I'm like, okay, what is it in here that can be beneficial? I have so many different conversations on a day-to-day basis, to the point to where I might not remember it verbatim, but I can guide you to, hey, go look up this article, or go find these new instructions to see what's new, because something is always new and something that is always different every year. This year in Georgia, they're granting veterans extra license plate tag. It used to be just two, now you can get three. So with that said, it's small stuff like that. Like, hey, you can Georgia just, approved us veterans to get an extra tag. Oh, I didn't know that. So
Yeah, yeah.
I don't necessarily just say I just target them, but I'm around them so much. I'm around veterans and
Yeah.
military so much. I have a lot of veteran friends all over America. So talking to them, as a matter of fact, I had my first veteran referral to one of my best friends that was in the Navy with me down in Jacksonville. And it was, well, I don't know. You want me to go ahead on to this
Sure. Yeah,
conversation?
yeah, why not?
Okay. I used to, when I first got into it, so talking about veterans, you asked, did I target veterans? When I first started selling real estate, I'm not from Georgia originally. And I was like, man, I don't have a sphere. Everybody say, get your SOI, get your sphere, get your sphere, get your sphere. I don't have one. Not here in Georgia. I didn't have one. All of my family, nobody lives here, this, that, and the third. So one day it hit me. I said, I got all these military buddies, all these military friends and buddies all over America. And they're constantly, you know, engaging with your content on social media. I can still serve that person. I just can't, if they're not in Georgia, I can't technically be your agent if you're not here in Georgia, but technically I can serve this person and service this person. So I ended up adding that to pretty much like my business plan. I do a business plan every year, year after year. And I added that to it like, hey, if I have people that's out here and they trust me, they trust my information, they trust what I'm telling them, why I can't be the person that find the agent in their area that they can trust. So with that, to keep on going on with that conversation, I'm currently the president of my local board here in Georgia, Metro South Association of Realtors. And so that right there, even though I really do like doing the travel from going to national conferences, state conferences, and all the other things that come along with it, I strategically and intentionally start going to these national conferences and finding my referral partners
Yeah.
versus going to I call them the yellow pages, instead of going to the Facebooks and the
Yeah. Yeah.
social medias and yellow pages of the world. Like, okay, I met this person, I had a conversation with this person,
Mhm.
I see I like how they handle their business. So with that being said, you probably going to be my new referral partner in this particular area. So when I do have that veteran friend, or if it's just a veteran that engages with my content on social media, I have somebody that I know I can trust, that I can send over to you. Because in this industry, sometimes, if I send you over to an agent and the agent don't treat you the same way I treated you, it might put a bad taste in your mouth, and it can result in several different things. The person can decide to not even want to purchase anymore, or they can lose a bit of trust from me. It's like, I didn't do anything. I wasn't the person that done it, but at the same time, if I trust you to find me somebody, I know you wasn't the person that did this, but
Yeah.
and that's
Quality.
that's a typical veteran thing, because I do the same thing. Like, well, I trust you the first time, and it didn't pan out. Like, you want me to trust you again and see what happens? Or so I can't get mad at a person for doing that. So that's why I say I strategically want to find and locate my referral partners all over America, to be able to have that person to go to and be able to send my veteran clients, or any client, but my veteran clients, over to them. And also finding a veteran, because everybody, I love all y'all out there is listening. But however, veterans just have a different way of thinking and doing things, and if you're not really understanding why this person is acting like this, or why this person reacted like that, and you never been in the military, I can see it being like, I don't know, this guy's or this guy or young ladies, they pretty tough. And I would have a conversation with them like, that person cooler than the other side of the pillow. You just got to understand how to have a conversation with them and talk to them.
And I like what you're saying about on the national side is networking and building the relationships. And I was a local board president. I've gone through, the leadership and all that kind of fun stuff as well, and still active on the national association side of things.
Nice. Nice.
And that's one of the one of the great things was that I was at the national was in Houston at the end of last year.
NXT,
So,
yes.
yeah, so I, I
Yes.
I was there, met a guy, military veteran out of DC or something. I forget where it was. And then he called me about 2 weeks ago. He called me and he's like, "Hey, Will, I don't know if you remember me. This is the conversation we had. Oh yeah, yeah, I remember you." He goes, "My son lost his job. He lives about 2.5 hours away from you. Can you help him?" I was like, "Well, you know what? I can't. I don't work that kind of real estate. That's kind of outside my market. But you know what? Here is who I can refer you to on that side." So even on that side, he called me because he trusted me and know
Right.
who I
Right.
would trust. I called somebody who I trusted, and she's like, "Look, I don't handle that area, but here are the three agents that I do recommend to handle that area." So as it's going through, he's called me back already. He's like, "Hey, he called all three of them. Two of them were outstandingly amazing. He's going to hire one of the two. He's just having a hard time figuring out which of the two to hire. Like they're that great."
Oh, wow.
And I would say from the same thing from veteran to veteran, I don't know his son. I don't know him outside of a 10-minute conversation and another 10-minute conversation when he called me asking for help. But having that relationship's absolutely huge, and I would agree. Most of my I'm on the commercial side of it, right? Most of my fellow military or veteran folks that I was serving with, they don't understand what I do. They just know I'm in real estate, so I think I'm selling
Right.
houses. So when hey, I got a question about this home loan, it's like I got no idea. That's not my world.
Right.
Let me
Right.
get you with
Right.
somebody. And too often they trust you because I mean that veteran connection is so drastically different because hey, I trust this guy with my life. I guess I can trust him with my house.
Right. 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 The bare minimum. Right.
Yeah. So I'm curious, as you got your license and you've kind of built your business, what role did the brokerage play in that? Did you go to the first brokerage? You've stayed there the entire time. How did you shop for that brokerage up front?
Well, it was a veterans program. Of course, we know some of these larger brokerages have a veteran type of a program, and they offered a package. And I was like, well, why not? Why not try it out and see what was going on with it? So I started with this particular brokerage. I'll be honest with you, I did leave. I did leave.
That's fair.
I left about 4 months or so after being there with them. I did leave. Great company, great brokerage. I don't have anything negative to say about it. It just wasn't a fit for me, if that makes sense. It wasn't a fit for me. And it was sometime, they had like a lot of brokers. They had like a lot of brokers. It was a larger company. So they had a lot of brokers. And I was like, man, I don't feel like I'm getting. I would call the brokers sometime and I would be more confused when I got off the phone with the brokers than I was before I called them. And where I'm at now, Legacy South Real Estate Group in Stockbridge, Georgia. My current broker, Keisha, she's an Army veteran. Didn't know that at first. We were just having conversation, and I would go out to networking events. You know how that goes. Going to networking events, and she would pour into me. Like 10 minutes of me talking to her at a networking event, I would get so much information, and I was like, man, this is all right. This is all right. I can deal with this smaller boutique brokerage. And one day I just got up and I was sort of kind of frustrated. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was sort of kind of frustrated because I felt like I wasn't making the progress that I wanted to make. I was only like 3, 4 months in, but it's just the person I am. I just wasn't feeling like I was making the progress. I felt like I wasn't making any headway. And I called her and just had a conversation with her. And I said, hey, look, I want to come over. And that's where I've been ever since. I would say it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. I have nothing. It's great. We're a smaller brokerage. Like I say, she's an Army veteran herself. As a matter of fact, the first gift when she opened up her brokerage I had bought her was an Army lamp. And she went back and she told me, she said, everything that I received, like gift wise from opening up this brokerage, this one stood out to me the most. And it's just a simple lamp that just have, Army around forget the name of it, they go over a lamp, the lampshade, and around the base, just have Army there. And it still sits in the brokerage to this day. It doesn't move. It sits in this. It has its own spot. And it's been great. It's been great. The way she pours into all of us. You know, for us to be a smaller boutique um brokerage, I would say we have all the systems and tools that you can go get from anywhere else. She pours into us a lot, and she understands me as a veteran. As a matter of fact, she pushed me to do my first seminar, and my very first seminar was a veterans home buy seminar at my local American Legion post. So that was, yeah, that was my very first one. I won't never forget that one, because she saw kind of the push that she gave me. It was like, I've been at this brokerage for, I think, like my first full week, and she was like, "So when is your first home buyer seminar?" And I was like, "What? Do you mean a home buyer seminar?" Like, I understand it, but I didn't feel I had the knowledge the way I wanted to have the knowledge. I do my home buyer seminars these days. I have maybe a presentation or like a PowerPoint or something, but I've caught myself at the end of the home buyer seminar, I never left the first page of the slideshow, because it's just the knowledge, it just
Yeah.
flows
Yeah.
at this point. But back when I needed that, to remind myself, okay, Al, talk about this and talk about that. So with that said, as far as my brokerage, outstanding, love the support. She's a veteran as well. She support all the things, even when I'm doing stuff with the American Legion, she will, like, hey, the brokerage can sponsor that if y'all need sponsors, so that's a good thing as well. So that's how that went.
That's interesting, going from the big brokerage, and I've been a part of them. But when you talked about culture fit, and this is, maybe I'm getting a little too personal now, but that was the last brokerage I was with, right? 6 weeks in it, I knew it wasn't the right culture fit. I mean,
Right.
knew right away. I stuck it out. I thought I could change things. I thought I was in leadership, so I thought I could change things. I thought I could move things along into the right direction and doing all those things. But I think that's one of the things that, a lot of companies will come in. Oh, we got a great culture. What does that mean? And then they'll also
Right.
jump in, look at the tools, the training, the communities, all that kind of stuff that we have, and that's great. But I think exactly what you said was that you weren't growing. It wasn't the right
There you go.
culture, and then you found somebody that was right away. It was a culture, and I'm curious. Was it just her that was the culture that got you there, or was there anything because she was prior military and that connection that you two both had as veterans that played into it more so? Do you think it leaned one way more than the other?
I'm gonna have to say yes and no again.
Okay.
Like I said, when I first started talking to her, I didn't even know she was a veteran. I didn't even know she was in the military. So I would say it could have been one of those hidden things, like, you know how it goes. You can be in a grocery store and start having a conversation with a person, and within the first 5 minutes or so, 30 seconds, sometimes you would know, oh, I'm talking to another veteran, or I'm
Right.
talking to another Army or a Navy person, this, that, and the third. But with her, I was so green, and I consider myself a sponge. I'm a sponge for education. I'm a sponge for knowledge, and I was just more or less just focusing on what she was saying, what she was telling me, and how to go about, building and growing in this business. And it probably been like maybe the second or third conversation to where we just really just started talking about, both of us being veterans. So I'm that's why I say yes and no. And then on the other thing was, it was just the knowledge, and, like, the care for the agents. We have grown a lot since when I first joined the brokerage. When I first joined the brokerage, I think I was the first male to join the brokerage, and we it was we have several part-time, we have a few full-time, but I treat, first and foremost, I treat real estate like it's a job. I get up and I go to the office every day, like every day. I'm in the office and I have my certain times. Like, some days it can be a 9 to 5. It all depends on what's going on, that day. But I get up and get dressed as if I was still in the military, if that makes sense. So that was another thing. And she's in the office every day. I just left the office and came here to my local board, but she's in the office every day. And I would be in the office, and I don't think agents, if you out here listening, take advantage of going in the office, especially if your broker is in the office. You do not understand how much you will just learn just by just sitting in the office. Like, you're not ear hustling or anything, but it's not like the office is the size of a Walmart. I mean, you can hear conversations. And if you're new or, you know, still, you don't have to be necessarily just new. You just want to, take your business to the next level. Get up and go to the office and just be amongst the real estate. You can, yeah, I have a home office as well. I do. That's for after business hours though. I want to go sit in my office, sit behind my desk. If I were to get a phone call, I'm already up, I'm already dressed, I'm ready to go. I can tell you, like, hey, well, look, let me wrap this up and I can meet you at this particular time versus the ones that's listening. And I think everybody knows this. If you just lounging around your home or your house or whatever it may be, and somebody call you, you probably haven't even got dressed for the day. You still have to go through all those things. So in my mind, that's a lot of time wasting right there.
Yeah, yeah.
So get up and treat it like a real job. And so to go back to answer that question again, she's in the office every day. I can go and, hey, I got a question about this. I have a question about that. And then, of course, you know how it is. You're an agent just like I am. Once we get together, we have our conversations and our debates and all of the other things. And one thing I can say about Keisha, that you say, well, what is it about her? One day, her daughter, she's a real estate agent. She's our transaction coordinator as well. And one day we was in our conference room, and me and Keisha were just having like just a general conversation about real estate. And next thing you know, her daughter Maya, she came and she looked in there and she was like, y'all all right? I was like, we both looked at her like, yeah, we all right. We're like, why, what's up? She was like, well, the way it's sounding here is like y'all about to start fighting one another. And I was like, oh no, not that. It's just we're just having a real estate conversation. And it was one of those things that straddled the fence between like ethics and morals versus this is how real estate works. And I had a valid point, but I was going more off of ethics and morals versus this is how this contract
Right.
works. This is how this is supposed to be done. So she was right, but she allowed me to get my thoughts about it out. And like I said, since I was like, oh no, I can't go for that. I don't understand that. That don't make sense because in my mind, like that's ethically, it's not right. It's just not right. But she allows that. She gives me that space to be able to, put my opinions and put my thoughts and stuff out there, but then come back and like, Al, I'm not saying that you're wrong about what you're saying. However, this is just how real estate works. This is how this contract works. This is how it's supposed to go. So I understand what you're saying, but this is how this stuff operates. So she give that type of a platform to be able to. It's an open door policy. Like you got a question, hey, come ask, come do this, and this the support. I can have personal stuff going on in my life, and she will be there. Same with me on the opposite end. I'll be there, for her. So I will say that she was probably the only other brokerage I probably interviewed because I'm not the person like to just bounce around. I don't like to. I'm not going to leave this job and go to this job, and I got the same job title, doing the same exact thing. I might just make $1 more an hour. It's just, to me, it's considered a lateral move. You didn't do anything, but just go get one more dollar. But you're new to this particular company, though, so technically, yeah, you got one more dollar from where you were, but you sort of kind of in the oil field, we say last hire, first fire. So it's those type of things. So even I just got my associate broker's license last year. I have no desire to open up my own brokerage right now though, because of the relationship and the rapport I have at my brokerage. So I mean, I can always go out there and branch out, but why?
Well, I think that's important too, and that's one of the things that I get asked all the time. Should you go get your broker's license? Should you take that next step? And each state's a little different, right? But I always put it this way: is that you don't know if that broker is going to get hit by a bus tomorrow, and all of a sudden you got to move your business. You don't know if they're going to go through a divorce and it's going to be nasty, and all of a sudden that business is nowhere near what it should have been. And so I've always encouraged folks to go out there and get that broker's license because to me it's always if something happens, I can step out the next day and be okay. So I agree. I think you're spot on. I do want to go back what you said about being in the office though. That's one of the pieces of advice I give agents all the time. But the guy that I have that's kind of my number two within our group right now, I thought he was ungodly annoying when I first met him. Like he just didn't mess with me, but he was like, "I'm going to learn. You're the guy I'm going to learn from." So he sat right outside my office forever, listened to every conversation. And then I started seeing that he had something that he was going, and then it got to the point where he's sitting there doing his cold calls, getting out there doing it, and you could just hear on the other side of the phone he was just getting told off. And I was like, "You opened it up this way, didn't you?" He's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Here's what happened." And all of a sudden, I'm coaching him by listening to him just sitting outside my door. And he now runs basically the brokerage side of my business. Like, because he sat there, he came to the office, he was doing all the things he should have. Were there probably more charismatic, better qualified, better pedigreed people than him? Absolutely. But he sat down, took it as an opportunity to learn, grew, and now he's stepping into a much larger role within our group simply by coming to the office and being there and then taking what he took and running with it.
And I love how you said that. That was pretty much the same. Oh no, I don't think I had the annoying part or whatever. But with me, I would, we was again, we a small boutique brokerage, and she was the only one that had broker license. And if she like you said, if she wanted to go on a vacation, or if she wanted to do this, or she wanted to do that, she still have a life as well, too.
Yeah.
But we would have to probably get like an outside broker to, like, hey, can you fill in? Or my agents have any questions? Because technically, it's supposed to be a broker there to answer the questions, this, that, and the third. And I was like, I was just waiting on time, honestly, because, at least 3 years in the business before you qualify to even take the broker exam. I was just waiting on time because I've seen the bigger picture of it. Yes, I'm happy I have it and I have it out the way, but I can be more of an asset to the brokerage. I can answer those questions, which I was answering questions before I got the broker's license, but now it's like, okay, Keisha can have a break, or she can go on a vacation and not worry about what's going on. I mean, you're on a cruise and it's like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? So it was just bigger than me just getting my broker license. I wanted to
Yeah.
be more help. I want to take on some of the responsibilities, because like I said again, like I said when we open this up, I love real estate and I love all things about it. And I'm not, like you said, you're in leadership, I'm in leadership, and when I talk to the agents or the realtors that come to new member orientation here at the board and other members that I bump into, I let them know that leadership to me, real estate is bigger than just opening and closing doors. So that's a big portion of like why I like the real estate. I love the opportunity to be in Houston at NXT, learning and just being around a different, group of agents that, we're all successful. I'm sure by you being a part of NAR and all the things you know about the YPN. That's how I got started. Young Professional Networks. If for the ones that's listening, you don't know what YPN stand for. That's how I got started was YPN. I came in head first, and I remember getting my license on a Friday, and I rushed back to my brokerage to get in the system because it was literally probably going to take me out if I went that whole weekend and didn't have access to NAR or here in Georgia, GAR, Georgia Association of Realtors, or even my local board. That's how excited I was. Now I'm still that excited, to where, oh, I got this opportunity. I got this opportunity. And it was probably about 3 or 4 months into real estate. And I was like, I wonder what this YPN stuff is all about. I'm on NAR website looking at this. And at the time, my local board didn't have a YPN. And our CEO, AE at the time, she sent out the email and she was like, hey, we're thinking about starting our YPN back and we want to see, she sent it out to all the members. And I was like, oh, really? How ironic. I've been thinking about this and I got this email. So this is definitely something I want to be a part of. And we had the first meeting and there was about 5 or 6 of us that showed up. For whatever reason, I was the youngest person in the room. in age and time. And when it came down to say, well, who we going to make the chair? It was like everybody sort of kind of turned and looked at me, and I was like, dang, I haven't even been around real estate that long, but I greatly appreciated the opportunity. And 4 years later, here I am as the youngest in age and time president of my local board. So leadership has its perks. We just had our inaugural conference here in Atlanta, or here in Georgia. It was in Atlanta. And at that particular conference, you know how we go and talk to legislation and go to the capitals, and like how we do a DC for mid-year and all of that. And um in the building, and we're passing different laws. I feel that that kind of stuff makes me a better agent, realtor to my clients. Is to go in here and hear them say that, hey, we have bills on the table to try to eliminate property taxes. We have bills on the tables to sort of kind of, these are actually current bills that's on the table. We have bills that trying to sort of kind of get a grip on HOAs and not, oh, you just missed one payment or you didn't cut the grass when they wanted you to cut the grass, and all of a sudden, don't get me wrong, I do understand the reason of an HOA. I understand the whole concept, but it sort of kind of baffles me a little bit when you have people that done spent the last 30 years and paid for their house, and they have title and everything is good, got the deed, got all of the different things, and now they might be a little bit on the elderly side and probably can't move around the same way they used to move around, but you're being slapped with an HOA fine, this, that, and the third. But those are the current type of bills
Yeah.
that's on the table. And so going to that kind of stuff, being in leadership, it does has its perks. And of course, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to go into leadership because leadership doesn't pay any money. I have to agree to disagree. It doesn't pay money on the front end, but it
Again.
definitely pays off on the back end.
Yeah.
I went to being in leadership, being in YPN, being the chair. I got the invitation to YPN Advance in Chicago, which is invitation only. Normally your YPN chairs and co-chairs, And my first year going, I went and we had a roundtable conversation. And once we was done, they wanted everybody, not everybody, but somebody from your table stand up and just speak about that particular topic. What did y'all discuss? And everybody at my table was like, Al, you should say what you just said. That was very powerful. That was very powerful. So, of course, you can't be fearful. With that being said, if you're going to these conferences and you sit in the corner on your phone, not doing anything, you defeating the purpose of going, sort of, kind of, to be honest with you. So I stood up. I only spoke for like 2 minutes. That was it. I just said my spiel, and that changed the whole dynamic of the national side of YPN for me. That first year going, from the first year to the next year, I received over 5 referrals just from this group of 200 agents that was in this room. So again, it doesn't pay on the front end, but if you go and take advantage and go and be in these different rooms and don't just sit in the corner and be too quiet, and if you have an opportunity to speak to the whole room, make it meaningful. Don't just talk just to be hearing yourself talk. And I didn't do that. I said some, and to this day I get text calls all the time like, hey, can't wait to see you in DC, can't wait to see you in Chicago. As a matter of fact, I just received a referral from a DC YPN agent here in Atlanta. So it doesn't pay on the front end, but going and building those relationships. And I know anybody that been in real estate, they tell you all the time, relationships. So um
Yeah.
did that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So as we kind of wrap it up, knowing what you know now, you're further along in your journey. What would you have told yourself, 12 months, 24 months from ETS about this journey, about transitioning? What would you have maybe done differently, or what advice would you give yourself um, differently, going back in retrospect, knowing what you know now?
As far as real estate or military?
Uh, coming out of the military, going into real estate.
I would say a little bit more intentional at the beginning. at the beginning, I was very much so intentional. If you know me, it'll make sense why I'm saying that. I'm very hard on my own self. I have to critique myself, and just going back, and I don't want to say maybe I should have went to the brokerage that I was with, that I'm with now, but if I had to add to it, that probably would have been great, because I seen what happened in the first few months of even being in real estate, So I would say being a little bit more, intentional. For the people that out there to answer that, to go a little deeper in that question, I actually, they covered all of my stuff, and I think it was about $2,000 worth of stuff that they covered for me, from pre-license and taking the test, and getting my signs and everything. Through this military program. For the people that's listening, if you're in a position, and to go back to what you said about early on, um, if you're in a position and you feel that you're struggling with your local brokerage or with your brokerage that you're with, what I would say is, if it's something that's on your mind and you want to go out there and make it happen, do what you got to do to make it happen. And when I say do what you got to do to make it happen, what I mean is I had to pay that money back
Mm.
to that brokerage, to have my license released per se. And I really feel deep down, because it was either, if you stay with us for 2 years, you don't owe us anything, But if you want to leave, this is what you owe us. And I made the conscious decision. I said, Al, if you stick around for the next 2 years, you're not going to be in real estate,
Mm.
because you're not getting anywhere. You're not getting the knowledge that you need. You're not getting this. You're not getting that. Don't get me wrong. Yes, you will have classes and stuff like that. But for a brand new agent that love what they're doing, and deep into it and want to be successful with this, giving me a little hour class and then throwing me back out there in the real estate streets, it wasn't doing me any justice. So if I can say anything, don't let it take, if you can see it in the second week, don't let it take you 4 or 5 months to make a decision. Especially if it's something that you wanted to do, because I could have literally let that money stand between me
And
being in
success.
real estate and probably not being in real estate. I mean, once I got over to my new board, it's not new board, I'm sorry, new brokerage. It was within a month. I had my first person under contract.
Mm.
And I was like, oh goodness, okay, 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 I got it. I'm actually learning the things that I need to learn. So what I would say, going back, looking at the beginning, I would say, now I guess that's why I say being more intentional.
Fair.
Be more intentional about what you're doing. Do you really want to be in this business? Do you really want to make this, a career? And if it's something that's not working right for you, if it's not fitting your plan, be willing to get uncomfortable again and move around. That's what I would say. If you're comfortable, you're probably not achieving what you want to achieve in life,
Fair.
if that makes sense. It probably don't apply to everybody, but I feel like if you are around my age per se, now don't get me wrong, if you at a retirement type of age, I expect you to live comfortably. Do what you want to do. You gotta put your time in. But you if you out here building something, get uncomfortable. Get yourself in an uncomfortable position and fight your way out of it. We was always uncomfortable sometime in the military, and what we had to do. We had to do what we had to do to fight our way out of this uncomfortable situation, no matter what it was. So yes, definitely be uncomfortable, because I didn't never think it and I know we got to wrap. I didn't think that when I went from the military, I went to the oil field. I wanted to make a career out of the oil field. I ended up getting um I wasn't fired, but it was a medical. The same thing, I got a medical discharge from the military. And if it
Mm.
wasn't for that, I would probably still be in the military. But what I can say is, when the oil field decided to make the decision and release me, it put me in an uncomfortable position,
Yeah.
because I was I was comfortable. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do this for the rest of my days. I'm gonna work in the oil field. I loved it. I enjoyed it a lot, but maybe that wasn't what the ultimate plan should have been, because I told you I started with real estate as a real young age. So it put me in an uncomfortable position. But now I'm comfortable from that situation, but I try to put myself in a uncomfortable position because I have goals that I want to achieve. I have things that I want to get done, and I want to continue to grow with knowledge physically and everything else when it come down to real estate. And sometime I could be out doing something else, but it might seem uncomfortable to somebody else, but I'm in a comfort zone when I'm sitting in the corner reading about real estate to be a better professional to my clients. So get up, don't get too comfortable, and be very intentional about what you're doing and how you want to move forward. That's what I would say looking back, retrospect.
Al, that's great information. If any of our listeners wanted to connect with you, wanted to find you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah. Well, if you want to find me on social media, I'm Hook the Realtor. My name is Al Hooker, so I try to keep my name and my handles and stuff. So I'm Hook the Realtor, and on all social media platforms. My cell phone number is 601-669-0007. Um, I'm open to any kind of conversation, real estate related, veteran related. Just need to talk about something. Definitely feel free to reach out to me. I would love to connect with the listeners that's listening, and I'm here. I love it, and feel free to reach out
Yeah.
anytime.
Well, Al, thank you so much for your time, so much for being willing to share your story on all this. This is great stuff. We probably could go for another hour
We probably
easily
could
on
have.
this one. It's good stuff. Maybe we'll work on having you back again. But thank you so much for your time
Definitely
on this one.
sounds good. Definitely looking forward to. You want me to have you back? Let me know when. I'll be there.
All right.